Welcome to Book Summary Podcast, your gateway to personal transformation. Each episode delivers big ideas from the world's most impactful books on mindset, productivity, and success, all in just a few minutes. Ready to turn knowledge into action? Let's get started.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we cut through the noise and get straight to the insights that matter. And today, we're tackling something truly universal, a challenge almost everyone faces, especially around this time of year: New Year's resolutions. You know the story, right? I make them, full of optimism, only for them to slowly, quietly fade away. In fact, according to research cited often, less than 10% of them actually see the light of day. Less than 10%. It just makes you wonder, why is it so incredibly hard for us to stick to anything truly worthwhile? Is giving up just like an innate human thing we're all doomed to repeat?
That's a powerful question to kick us off, and it gets right to the heart of what we're diving into today. This deep dive is designed as your shortcut, your manual, really, to understanding what Daniel Walter, in his insightful book, The Power of Discipline, calls the single most crucial skill for success and fulfillment. It promises to be a guide for transforming those persistent bad habits and, helping you adopt good ones that genuinely stick.
Let's talk about that promise, because Walter, he doesn't waste any time making a really bold core argument. He cites success coach Brian Tracy, who apparently once asked Kurt Koppmeyer, a guy who spent 5 decades researching success principles, what the most important principle was. And Koppmeyer's reply was just stark, simple. He said, there are 999 other success principles, but without self-discipline, none of them work.
Wow, none of them.
Think about that. Essentially, self-discipline isn't just a principle. It's like the master key that unlocks every other door to personal fulfillment. Walter puts it beautifully, saying it's the force that allows the average person to rise further than intelligence and talent alone.
It truly is the bridge from ordinary to extraordinary.
Right. Without it, even the most educated and talented among us might just find ourselves, drifting in mediocrity.
It's the stark truth, isn't it? And for you, our listener, this deep dive is about stepping into full responsibility for where you are right now and, critically, where you truly want to be. Walter's book promises that by the end of this journey, you'll gain a profound understanding of self-discipline, learn how to build those life-transforming habits, and ultimately take conscious control of your life by deliberately changing your daily actions. It's about breaking that annual cycle of, well-intentioned failure and moving into one of consistent, satisfying progress.
And here's where we hit an immediate aha moment that might surprise you. Walter suggests that a deep sense of, disgust for your current circumstances can actually be an incredibly powerful, positive motivator for change.
Disgust. Really? That sounds harsh.
It does, but think about it. Imagine that feeling. Maybe you see an unflattering photo of yourself and it truly repulses you. Or, I don't know, maybe your electricity gets cut off because you simply forgot to pay the bill again. That raw repulsion, that deep dissatisfaction, uncomfortable as it is, can be the very spark you need to jolt yourself into action and propel you forward. It's not pleasant, no, but it can be profoundly transformative.
That is counterintuitive, but I can see how potent it could be. That profound discomfort, that genuine dissatisfaction can indeed be the most powerful catalyst for change. So today, we're going to take you through the comprehensive nature of self-discipline. We'll start with its biological underpinnings, exploring how our brains are literally wired for it. Then move into the practical daily habits that build it. We'll tackle those sneaky mental roadblocks that often sabotage our best intentions. And finally, we'll embrace the very discomfort that discipline often demands. It's a journey from understanding the foundational why to mastering the actionable how.
Okay, so let's kick off by challenging a really common misconception about self-discipline. This idea that it's some innate trait, like eye color, that you either have or you don't. We often hear people say, I'm just not a disciplined person, as if it's like a fixed part of their personal DNA. But the science, as Walter clearly shows, tells a very different story, doesn't it?
It really does. There's a distinct biological basis to self-discipline, and it's absolutely something you can develop, strengthen, and grow over time. It's not fixed at all.
Okay, that's crucial. So it's learnable.
Exactly. Neuroscientists Todd Hare and Colin Kemmerer conducted a fascinating study back in 2009. They used fMRIs, those machines that let us see brain activity in real time, to observe what was happening when participants made decisions that required self-control. The experiment was classic. Choose between a smaller financial reward right now or a larger one later. This is like the ultimate internal battle between instant gratification and the power of willpower.
Right, the classic dilemma. And what did their brain scans actually reveal? Which parts of our brains were lighting up during this?
Well, they observed significant activity in the parts of our brain responsible for long-term planning and impulse control. Specifically, the ventral medial prefrontal cortex and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. What's truly impactful here is that the activity in these areas was higher when participants made choices that would benefit them in the long run.
Ah, okay. So more activity meant better, more disciplined choices.
Precisely. The powerful takeaway is that your brain isn't static. Every time you make a disciplined choice, you are literally strengthening the neural pathways for more self-control. It's not about having discipline, it's about building it, one choice at a time. It's like a muscle that you can actually develop and train.
That's incredibly empowering. It means if you're struggling to say no to that sugary snack, or you can't seem to stop mindlessly scrolling social media, it's not a moral failing or some inherent flaw. It's just an opportunity to strengthen a skill, like going to the gym for your brain.
Exactly. And speaking of delayed gratification, we really can't talk about that without bringing up the legendary Stanford marshmallow experiment.
Oh yeah, the marshmallow test. Everyone knows that one.
Indeed. The 1972 marshmallow experiment is iconic, right? And its reevaluation in 2011, which incorporated brain imaging, provided even deeper insights. The original study, as many know, showed that children who could delay eating one marshmallow to get two later tended to have demonstrably better life outcomes, better grades, better jobs, you name it. The 2011 reevaluation directly linked this ability to delay gratification to brain activity. Participants who were better at waiting showed increased activity in those same prefrontal cortex areas we just discussed, our brain's control center. And interestingly, they also saw differences in the ventral striatum, a region often linked to addictive behaviors.
Wow. So a seemingly simple childhood choice with a marshmallow actually offered a glimpse into how their adult brains would make decisions, and even predicted their overall success in life, from academics to relationships. That's truly profound, isn't it?
It absolutely highlights the profound implications. Self-discipline is a masterable skill, not something genetically predetermined. Walter uses a fantastic analogy here. Weightlifting strengthens the body, and if you target the areas in the brain mentioned in the studies, they will increase in strength. It's about targeted practice.
So it's about more than just willpower. It's literally building new neural pathways, like building muscle memory, but for your brain's control systems. And that leads us to the concept of executive functions. What exactly are these, and how do they tie into all this self-discipline stuff?
Right, executive functions are a critical set of mental skills. They're vital for navigating daily life. Things like planning, problem solving, and managing our behavior effectively. They encompass working memory, cognitive flexibility, that's our ability to switch between tasks or thoughts adaptability, and crucially for our discussion, impulse control. These functions operate in various brain regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and the orbitofrontal cortex, and they are absolutely crucial for discipline. They enable us to set goals, filter out distractions, control those unhelpful inhibitions, prioritize activities, and then, most critically, sustain pursuit of those goals until they're accomplished.
Ah, okay, so they're like the brain's management team.
Exactly. And Walter emphasizes this powerful simultaneous relationship. Self-discipline and focus work simultaneously. You can't master one without the other, because discipline is the ability to focus on one course of action until that goal has been accomplished.
That makes perfect sense. If you can't focus, you can't truly be disciplined. They really are two sides of the same coin. But, even with all this brain power, willpower isn't limitless, is it? I've certainly experienced what feels like willpower fatigue. What's that all about?
That's a really critical concept to understand. If you want to protect your self-discipline, it's very real. Just like a muscle gets tired after a strenuous workout, your willpower and capacity for self-discipline can also get worn down throughout the day. Psychologist Will Baumeister's 1996 study on willpower depletion is a great illustration. He had participants in a room with tempting sweet treats like cookies and also some bitter radishes. One group was allowed to eat the sweets. The other group was instructed to eat only the radishes, requiring them to exert significant self-control to resist the treats.
Okay, I can see where this is going. The poor radish eaters.
Exactly. Afterward, both groups were given a difficult, frustrating puzzle to solve. The radish eaters, whose willpower had presumably been depleted by resisting the sweets, gave up on the puzzle significantly faster than the sweet treat eaters. Their ability to persevere on the puzzle had diminished, leading them to choose, essentially, the path of least resistance.
So their willpower was literally drained by resisting that initial temptation, making them less capable of self-control on the next task. That explains so much about why we might make questionable decisions later in the day after a long, stressful one. It's not a character flaw, it's just a depleted resource.
Precisely. And this leads directly to the vital idea of willpower protection. Our brain's main priority, fundamentally, is survival. Even if low blood sugar or energy levels aren't truly life-threatening in our modern world, the brain, from an evolutionary perspective, might interpret them as such and push us into a kind of survival mode, craving instant gratification, like high-calorie foods.
So that's why fatty or sugary foods seem so appealing when we're tired or stressed.
It's a big part of it. This is where strategies like removing temptation become absolutely vital. It's about managing your environment. If you're trying to eat healthier, don't keep unhealthy foods in the house. Avoid those tempting aisles at the grocery store, especially if you're shopping after dinner when you're less hungry and maybe less vulnerable to impulse buys. This isn't about avoiding self-discipline. It's about intelligently creating conditions where your willpower isn't constantly under siege. It's proactive.
That's a huge shift in perspective. It's not about brute forcing your way through every single temptation, but about being strategic and smart about your environment, setting yourself up for success. What about stress? How does that factor into our willpower reserves? Does it drain them too?
Oh, stress is a major willpower thief, a huge one. When we're under pressure, our bodies activate that ancient fight-or-flight mode. In this heightened state, the prefrontal cortex, the very part of the brain involved in rational, long-term decision-making, actually functions less effectively, kind of goes offline. We become more likely to act on impulse and focus only on short-term outcomes, seeking immediate comfort or relief. So managing stress isn't just about feeling better, it's profoundly about protecting your capacity for self-discipline.
Wow. So when you're stressed, your brain essentially defaults to instant gratification. That perfectly explains why a really tough day can lead straight to comfort eating or just vegging out in front of the TV instead of working out. Ultimately, Walter brings it back to a simple yet fundamental principle. Discipline is about doing what you know you've got to do even when you don't feel like it. And the real kicker, the thing that truly turns dreams into reality, is consistency, right? Slacking off every other day just isn't going to cut it.
Consistency builds momentum. That's the essence of it. Understanding the biological process makes it clear that discipline isn't some arbitrary punishment. It's a trainable skill. And the more consistently you practice it, the more your brain is literally reprogrammed to accept it as the norm, making discipline choices easier and more automatic over time.
So we've explored the biological side, how our brains are actually built for discipline, which is really encouraging. Now let's turn our attention to the profound impact it can have on, well, pretty much every area of your life. Moving beyond just hitting your goals, we're delving into the why, the transformative benefits of self-discipline.
You're right, and Walter really emphasizes that most people don't fully grasp this because society often encourages us to just, drift on autopilot. It's easier. But if you look closely at many personal struggles, whether it's relationship issues, financial problems, health issues, a fundamental lack of self-discipline often sits right at the core. It truly is a foundational skill that ripples out across your entire existence.
Let's start with elevated self-confidence. How does a lack of self-discipline chip away at our self-esteem? Because it definitely seems to.
It creates this kind of self-perpetuating negative cycle, doesn't it? People set goals, especially those New Year's resolutions we talked about, full of hope. But by, say, February or March, old habits creep back in and the goals are quietly forgotten, abandoned. Walter paints vivid examples. Someone wants to lose weight but consistently finds themselves on the couch eating burgers. Or they desperately want more money but lack the motivation to learn about self-employment or new skills. Inactivity, he points out, inevitably leads to failure. And when years pass and you realize you're still stuck in a place you don't want to be, that insidious feeling of worthlessness really begins to set in.
Oof. So those unfulfilled goals become a constant nagging reminder of perceived personal failure, like a little voice constantly saying, see, you couldn't do it. That's a heavy burden to carry.
Exactly. Now contrast that with a self-disciplined person. Walter describes them as genuinely confident because regardless of their current circumstances, rich or poor, whatever, they inherently know they're actively working towards being the best version of themselves. They're consistently eating properly, maybe they're exercising, they're chipping away at their goals day by day. They feel good because they're truly in the driver's seat of their own lives, and they know precisely where they're going. This isn't superficial confidence, it's deeply rooted, built on tangible action and profound self-trust.
That makes so much sense. If you're consistently doing what you said you would, even small things, your inner monologue becomes so much more positive and empowering. You start to trust yourself. What about relationships? How does self-discipline actually make those stronger? That connection might not be immediately obvious.
Well, self-discipline directly builds trust, which is the absolute bedrock of any strong relationship, right? Think about it. How many friendships or relationships falter because someone doesn't follow through on their word? Maybe you confide in someone, tell them a secret, and suddenly your whole office knows your business.
Yeah, that happens way too often.
Or a friend borrows money and simply never pays it back, making excuses or just disappearing. Walter highlights that a disciplined person lives by their word. If you ask them to keep a secret, they will. If they borrow money, they pay it back. They're often the same person in private as they are in public because they deeply value integrity. These are rare and incredibly valued traits that naturally foster strong, reliable personal networks. People learn to trust them implicitly.
That integrity truly is key. It's about being reliable and consistent, which are indeed hallmarks of discipline. You know you can count on them. And what about resilience to offense? I know a lot of people who seem to get offended very easily these days. How does discipline help with that?
It's an interesting link. Walter suggests that people who are easily offended often lack true self-assurance. They don't really know who they are or what they stand for deep down. So they perceive criticism, even constructive criticism, as a direct personal attack on their character, on their very being. A self-disciplined person, however, is typically confident, calm, and self-assured. They can genuinely take insults and criticisms on the chin because their self-worth isn't dependent on external validation or what others think. In fact, they can even value constructive criticism as a powerful tool for improvement. They see it as feedback, not a threat. And that's a profound difference in mindset.
That shifts everything from defensiveness to a growth opportunity. That's huge. And finally, how does self-discipline help us avoid engaging in risky behaviors?
Well, behavioral theories often link self-control directly to risky behaviors. Hershey's and Gottfried's self-control theory, for example, posits that criminal behavior stems, in part, from an individual's inability to control their desires and impulses. Now, criminal behavior is complex, obviously, but the underlying idea is that self-control acts as a powerful deterrent to impulsive, potentially harmful actions. A 2012 study by Ford and Blumenstein found that American college students with high self-control were significantly less likely to abuse prescription medication, binge drink, or use cannabis.
Okay, so the impact of discipline extends far beyond just career success or physical fitness. It's about making sounder life choices across the board, protecting yourself.
Exactly. The study also highlighted a link between a lack of self-control and impulsive sexual behavior, which obviously increases risks of things like STDs and unplanned pregnancy. So Walter's ultimate point here is crystal clear. There is more to self-discipline than goal attainment, and exercising a consistent high level of self-control will benefit you in many, many areas of life. It really is a skill that can transform your entire existence.
Okay, now that we've covered the why, the benefits, and the what, the biology of self-discipline, let's talk about the how. Because, let's face it, understanding all this is one thing, but actually doing it, putting it into practice, is another thing entirely. And Walter is incredibly upfront about this, acknowledging that improving self-discipline is not an easy task and involves navigating some deep-seated mental blockages.
He absolutely validates that struggle, which I think is so important for you listening. It's incredibly common to feel like some kind of invisible force is holding you back, even when you're utterly determined to change.
Yeah.
Understanding these psychological phenomena, these internal resistance points, is the very first step in effectively fighting against them. You have to know your enemy, so to speak.
Right, and the first major one he highlights is the status quo bias. What exactly is that, and why does it trip so many of us up? It sounds comfortable.
Sure, right. It is comfortable, and that's the problem. The status quo bias is a deeply ingrained human disposition. Our powerful tendency to cling to what we're familiar with rather than venturing into the unknown, even if the unknown might be better. Walter notes its roots in economics, citing studies by Richard Zeckhauser and William Samuelson back in '88. They observed that even when faced with multiple, often better alternatives, most people choose to do nothing and just stick with the current state. A more general term for this, as Walter cites, is simply inertia, the tendency to just stay put.
Inertia, that's such a perfect word for it. It's like our brains are hardwired to just stay comfortable, conserve energy, avoid risk. So what are some of the sneaky factors that contribute to this bias, keeping us stuck in that comfort zone?
There are several, and they often work together, making it really hard to break free. One is the sunk cost fallacy. This is a really self-defeating behavior where people remain in unfulfilling situations, like a dead-end job, an unhealthy relationship, or even a hobby they no longer enjoy, simply because they've already invested so much time, effort, or money into it. They're reluctant to cut their losses and walk away, even when objectively better opportunities are staring them in the face.
Oh, that resonates deeply. It's like, I've already put 5 years into this job. I can't possibly leave now. Even if those 5 years have been absolutely miserable, we confuse past investment with future obligation.
Exactly. It's illogical, but feels compelling. Another factor is loss aversion theory. This psychological principle dictates that people generally don't like losing things, even if what they're losing isn't particularly valuable or beneficial anymore. Subconsciously, we tend to assume that change, even positive change, will do us more harm than good, because there's always an associated cost or perceived risk involved in making a switch. We demand absolute proof that the alternative will be unequivocally better before we're willing to let go of the familiar, which, let's be honest, is a very high bar to clear. Almost impossible sometimes.
And then there's the universal fear of regret. We don't want to make a big change and then regret it later, especially if we feel others will judge us for our mistake. That potential judgment can be absolutely paralyzing.
That's a significant one, yes. The fear of making the wrong choice often pushes us right back to defaulting to comfort, to the status quo. We're so afraid of failure. But Walter powerfully challenges this, reminding us that failure is not final. All successful people, he points out, fail at some point, often spectacularly. But the difference is, they use those mistakes as invaluable lessons to make better future decisions. The feeling of looking back years from now and wondering, what if, is often far more tormenting than having genuinely tried and failed. Regret can be worse than failure.
That's a really important perspective shift. And what about the mere exposure effect? How does that tie into the status quo, both positively and negatively? That sounds intriguing.
This is a fascinating and powerful subconscious mind trick. Decades of research show that the more we experience something, the more we tend to like and accept it, even if we didn't initially. Walter cites studies illustrating how increased exposure to even neutral symbols or words can lead to more positive feelings towards them. Familiarity breeds liking, essentially. Now, the advantage here is that if positive self-control becomes a norm, if you consistently practice good habits, your brain literally gets comfortable with that new positive status quo, and it becomes harder to revert to old ways. It starts to feel natural.
So if I start waking up early on Saturdays to work on my side project, the more I do it, the more my brain will actually embrace it as my new normal, my new comfortable.
Precisely. That's the upside. However, the disadvantage is that this same effect can keep us bound to bad habits. Walter explains, the longer we are exposed to a situation, the more we develop an assumption that it may not be exactly what we want, but it will do. This explains why we might hold on to a less-than-ideal job or a lazy routine simply because it's familiar. It feels safe, even if it's unfulfilling. The trick, Walter says, is to consciously remind yourself that the more you engage in a positive new habit, the easier and more appealing it will become over time. You have to push through the initial unfamiliarity.
Okay, so how do we actually overcome this powerful, deeply ingrained status quo bias? Sound like a really tough uphill battle against our own brains.
Walter reframes it brilliantly. He says the status quo bias will keep you safe. It's your brain's way of conserving energy and avoiding perceived threats. But it will also ensure that your hopes and dreams are never fulfilled. It keeps you small. This is precisely why he stresses that people shouldn't be afraid of failure. They should be scared of regret. Fear regret more than failure. To actively dismantle this bias, he suggests a very practical thought evaluation exercise.
Ah, the 4 quarters paper exercise, right. That sounds like a concrete tool listeners can actually use.
Yes, it is. Very practical. You take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle and one across, creating 4 distinct quarters. In each quarter, you list status quo advantages, status quo disadvantages, advantages to the alternative, and disadvantages to the alternative. Spend at least 10 minutes just brainstorming, letting thoughts flow freely onto the paper. Then, crucially, step away, sleep on it, and revisit it the next day with fresh eyes. He also advises asking someone you trust for a second, objective opinion, but critically, to consciously try to remove your feelings from the decision-making process. The goal is to logically evaluate your options, getting it all down on paper, and get into the habit of questioning your automatic decisions to actively alter your habits. This is about making a deliberate, conscious choice to step out of your comfort zone based on logic, not just gut feeling or fear.
That's incredibly actionable advice. Really helps to visualize the pros and cons objectively. Okay, let's move to the next mental hurdle, which Walter titles the Dunning-Kruger Effect, a reality check. Uh-oh. This sounds like it could be a truly humbling experience for some listeners, maybe even for us.
It absolutely can be, and it's such a vital concept for self-awareness, even if it stings a little. Walter introduces the Dunning-Kruger Effect as a critical aspect of understanding ourselves, warning about the inherent danger of being out of touch with reality when it comes to assessing their skills. He uses the universally relatable example of the coworker who thinks their jokes are funny but they aren't, which immediately paints a clear, slightly cringeworthy picture, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, we all know that coworker, or maybe we are that coworker sometimes and don't realize it. So what exactly is the Dunning-Kruger effect beyond the bad jokes?
It's a specific type of cognitive bias where individuals are not only incompetent in a certain area but also, crucially, fail to realize their incompetence. Walter calls it a double burden. They lack the skill, and they lack the self-awareness to see that they lack the skill. This means they often continuously make mistakes in the same area because they are completely ignorant of their own deficiencies. They might struggle with self-reflection or the ability to accurately assess their own knowledge and skills. They'll often attribute failure to external factors, like bad luck or someone else's fault, rather than their own shortcomings. It protects their ego, but prevents growth.
Right, protects the ego. And this phenomenon was famously studied by Cornell psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, hence the name.
Yes, exactly. In their groundbreaking study, they looked at skills like humor, logic, and grammatical knowledge. They found that those who scored lowest in these categories were paradoxically the least likely to believe they had a problem or recognize their errors. This really emphasized the common human tendency to think of themselves more highly than their abilities warrant. We tend to overestimate ourselves. Conversely, Walter points out something interesting. Those with a high skill set are usually very modest about their capabilities because they're constantly aware of how much more there is to learn. The more you know you don't know.
That's so true. The real experts are often the most humble. So how does this Dunning-Kruger effect apply to self-discipline specifically? It feels like it could be really dangerous to overestimate your own discipline, maybe leading to complacency or taking on too much.
It is indeed very dangerous in this context. Walter warns that it's possible to overestimate your ability in these areas, to think you're more disciplined or productive or resistant to temptation than you actually are. He offers a powerful caution against complacency. If you ever get to the point where you believe you have mastered the art of being highly productive at all times and have the ability to resist temptation, be careful. That's a red flag. Because paradoxically, the deeper you get into something, the more you realize how much more there is to learn about it. True mastery often comes with a greater awareness of the vastness and complexity of the subject, not an inflated sense of knowing it all.
Okay, so what's the solution to this paradox? How do you maintain confidence and drive, which you need for discipline, without falling into the Dunning-Kruger trap of overestimating yourself and becoming blind to your weaknesses?
The key is striking a delicate balance. Unwavering confidence in your genuine abilities, coupled with a humble willingness to accept and act on constructive criticism. It's confidence plus humility. He uses a great analogy. Imagine you think you're a really good driver. You've been driving for years. But an advanced driving instructor tells you your skills are actually below average for your experience level. You have two choices. You can either accept the feedback, however bruising to the ego, and work to improve, or you can get defensive and accuse the instructor of ignorance. The disciplined path, the one that leads to genuine growth, is to accept the feedback.
So constant self-development is truly the first line of defense. Never assuming you've made it or know everything, always be learning.
Absolutely. Always aim to be better today than you were yesterday. Walter suggests utilizing tools like apps that provide objective feedback and track your progress. They don't lie, they give you the data. Another crucial strategy is to deliberately associate with people who are further ahead than you are in your area of desired competence. This isn't about negative comparison or feeling bad about yourself. It's about exposing yourself to continuous learning, raising your own bar, and seeing what's truly possible from people who are living it. And consistently tracking your progress against your specific goals will keep you grounded in reality, showing you where you really are, not just where you think you are.
And he also gives a subtle but important warning against pointing the finger at others who might be exhibiting the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's so easy to spot in others, isn't it? Much harder in ourselves.
Yes. He advises resisting that urge to judge or criticize. It's neither helpful nor kind, and frankly, it distracts you from your own self-assessment. The ultimate takeaway from this segment is a powerful reminder. There is no such thing as perfection. All humans have flaws. There is always room for improvement. This mindset allows for continuous growth without the crushing pressure of an impossible ideal. It's about progress, not perfection.
Okay, let's move now to the truly actionable part of our deep dive. Daily habits for deepening self-discipline. This is where the rubber really meets the road, isn't it? This is the practical stuff. Walter emphasizes that habits are routine behaviors performed without putting any conscious thought into them, and over time, they simply become part of your character. It's like brushing your teeth. You just do it automatically.
That's the ultimate goal. Effortless consistency, where the right action is the default action. Walter vividly illustrates how habits reflect character, whether it's the automaticity of teeth brushing or the negative cycle of habitually being late for everything. He even describes his own father's consistent evening routine of just sitting in front of the TV, highlighting how these repetitive actions, initially triggered by conscious thoughts or decisions, eventually become deeply ingrained, almost subconscious programs. The fundamental difference between successful and unsuccessful people, he states quite boldly, is precisely the habits they follow each day. Successful individuals don't just achieve things randomly, they cultivate consistent, life-enhancing routines that drive their achievements day in, day out.
So it's not about grand Herculean efforts once in a while, but the small, consistent things you do every single day, the compound effect of daily habits. And he highlights the morning routine as absolutely critical here. The start of the day sets the tone.
It is. Profoundly so. Walter stresses that your morning routine will set the pace for the rest of your day. It creates momentum, either positive or negative. He draws a sharp contrast. Imagine a negative morning hitting snooze repeatedly, feeling rushed, grabbing unhealthy fast food on the way to work, feeling stressed, then justifying continued unhealthy choices throughout the day because, well, the day's already ruined, right? Now compare that to a positive one, waking early, maybe engaging in some light exercise, enjoying a healthy breakfast, feeling calm and positive, which then naturally encourages more healthy, disciplined decisions throughout the rest of the day.
He even gives inspiring examples of highly successful people and their non-negotiable morning habits, like Barack Obama starting his day at 7 a.m. with 45 minutes of exercise, or Bill Gates famously up at 4 a.m. watching an educational DVD while on the treadmill.
And Oprah Winfrey, consistently starting at 6 a.m. with a dog walk, positive affirmations, and meditation. The pattern is undeniable and striking. Successful people have a fixed morning routine that enhances their life. It's about taking conscious control of the very start of your day rather than letting it control you or just reacting to it. And equally important, Walter argues, is the final hour of the day, your evening routine. It bookends the day.
The evening routine, why is that just as important as the morning? It feels less about action and maybe more about winding down.
Because restorative sleep is absolutely paramount for renewal, mental rest, and sustained productivity. You can't be disciplined if you're exhausted. A consistent bedtime routine, things like turning off digital devices an hour before bed, reading a physical book, light stretches, or even just quiet reflection, helps you unwind and prepare for truly restorative sleep. Walter emphasizes getting a minimum of 7 hours of sleep each night, warning that consistently getting less will severely damage your long-term health, mental clarity, and critically your productivity and willpower the next day. Sleep is an investment, not an indulgence or a waste of time.
Got it. Non-negotiable sleep. Beyond these foundational morning and evening routines, what other daily habits do successful, disciplined people consistently incorporate?
Okay, first, he stresses the importance of practicing gratitude. This might sound a bit soft, but there's science behind it. A 2016 study by Destino and Dickens found a strong link between self-control and gratitude. Participants who felt more grateful were willing to wait significantly longer for a financial reward. Gratitude seems to buffer impatience. Walter suggests 2 actionable steps. First, consciously say thank you, genuinely, for small things in relationships and friendships. It's amazing how this simple act shifts your perspective from lack to abundance. Second, make time for gratitude by maybe keeping a journal and writing down 5 things you're grateful for daily. This actively counters the human tendency towards complaining and deliberately focuses your attention on the positive aspects of the world.
That makes profound sense. A positive, grateful mindset makes you more resilient and less prone to short-term, impulsive thinking driven by negativity. Okay, next habit, set daily goals. How does that work for tackling daunting long-term ambitions?
Right, because long-term goals can feel incredibly daunting, even paralyzing, when viewed as this huge, distant mountain to climb. Walter advises breaking them down into small, actionable daily steps. For example, if you want to lose, say, 60 pounds in 12 months, that breaks down to just over a pound a week. A much more manageable daily focus on hitting your calorie or exercise target for that day. This makes the overall goal less intimidating, builds momentum with small, achievable wins, and clarifies your immediate actions for today. Consistency, he reminds us again and again, is absolutely the key to your success in these daily, incremental efforts.
Small steps, big results over time, and for a good night's sleep, he gives really practical advice beyond just aiming for 7 hours. Specific tips.
Yes, he provides detailed, actionable tips for optimal rest because just being in bed for 7 hours doesn't guarantee quality sleep. Things like limiting daytime naps to 30 minutes max, strictly avoiding stimulants like caffeine and nicotine in the evening, ideally after lunch, being mindful of what you eat close to bedtime, avoiding rich, heavy foods and carbonated drinks, establishing a relaxing bedtime routine like a warm bath, reading a physical book, light stretches, and crucially, avoiding emotionally charged conversations right before sleep, and of course, creating the right environment. A comfortable mattress and pillows, absolutely no lights from devices, even tiny ones, maybe using blackout curtains. These might seem minor, but they're all crucial for optimal rest and therefore optimal discipline the next day.
Good sleep hygiene, basically. And the last one in this group, stay organized. How does that relate directly to fostering self-discipline? It seems more like a productivity hack.
Walter states it plainly. Organization and self-discipline go hand in hand. They reinforce each other. A disciplined person instinctively seeks to make life easier and more efficient, and organization is a direct path to that. He lists several compounding benefits. Improved productivity. Less time searching for things means more time doing things. Less stress. You find items easily, reducing frustration. More energy and enthusiasm. You're not constantly drained by chaotic environments. And even projecting a positive image, both for yourself and how others perceive you. Chaos, he emphasizes, drains willpower by constantly presenting minor frustrations and unexpected hurdles that chip away at your focus and resolve.
Okay, that makes sense. Reducing friction. Finally, he highlights 2 truly golden habits that he found consistently performed by highly successful people, both done before 8 a.m. Really foundational habits.
Yes, these are presented as incredibly powerful. The first is to pray meditate. Walter notes its profound cross-cultural and non-religious appeal, pointing out that even atheists often integrate some form of reflection or mindful practice into their lives. Research, including studies cited by PNAS and others, consistently shows meditation reduces stress, improves memory, enhances brain function, boosts focus, and can even spark creativity. He cites numerous successful individuals, from Tom Hanks and Jennifer Aniston to Tim Ferriss and Oprah Winfrey, who incorporate daily meditation. Oprah even stated she produces her best work when she's in a meditative state. It's positioned as one of the major keys to success for cultivating inspired ideas, finding clarity, and managing internal states.
So it's not just about calming the mind, though that's huge, but also about sparking new thoughts and solutions, maybe even finding your purpose. What's the second golden habit before 8 a.m.?
The second one is spend time reading. Walter observes that wealthy and successful people often have extensive libraries and consistently prioritize continuous education. Reading is a non-negotiable for them. He even mentions how Warren Buffett and Bill Gates expressed a desire to be able to speed read extremely fast, highlighting their insatiable hunger for knowledge and learning. It's about continuous education for personal and professional development, deliberately investing your time in books or materials that directly help you achieve your goals, rather than passively consuming gossip magazines or purely entertainment media. And he dismisses common excuses like, I don't like to read or I have no time, by pointing to audiobooks as a convenient and powerful solution for learning on the go. These 2 habits, prayer, meditation, and reading, consistently applied, form an incredibly powerful foundation for building deep self-discipline.
Okay, meditating and reading before 8 a.m. Powerful stuff. Next, we're going to dive into some really potent insights about willpower and mental fortitude drawn from one of the most disciplined groups on the planet, the Navy SEALs. They really embody self-discipline, don't they?
They certainly do. Walter presents the Navy SEALs as an ultimate model of self-discipline, emphasizing their incredibly rigorous training and, perhaps even more importantly, their unbelievable mental fortitude. Their strategies, he argues, are not just for elite military operations in extreme conditions. Their core principles are actually applicable to anyone looking to master their self-control and push way beyond their perceived limits in everyday life.
Let's start with what he calls the 40% rule. This sounds intriguing, almost counterintuitive to how we normally react when we feel tired or overwhelmed.
It's a core SEAL strategy, and it completely reframes fatigue. The rule basically states, when the mind starts telling the body it's tired, we have only reached 40% of what we are actually capable of. No. The crucial part is the choice you make at that very moment of discomfort. You can either give in to that feeling, or you can choose to believe you genuinely have 60% left in the tank and push through the mental and physical discomfort. Walter explains that most people never truly reach their full potential because they simply stop as soon as they feel that initial twinge of discomfort or hear the first voice of internal resistance telling them to quit. By actively applying this 40% rule, you begin to realize your unlimited potential by learning to ignore that nagging voice and pushing past your perceived pain points again and again.
So the example he gives of doing pull-ups, maybe you feel like you can only do 10, you hit that wall. But if you apply the rule, take a short break, mentally reset, and then push through that mental barrier, you suddenly find you can actually do maybe 15 or 20. That shatters your perceived limits, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And each time you do that, you push the boundary further. This process deliberately builds confidence and mental toughness. Walter connects this to the idea of belief being a key ingredient for self-discipline. He likens it to running a marathon when you're completely unprepared. But imagine you're being chased for your life.
Yeah.
In that extreme situation, you would somehow find hidden reserves of energy and speed you never knew you possessed, simply because the stakes, the belief in the necessity, changes everything. This vividly illustrates how much most of us underestimate our true capabilities in everyday life when the pressure isn't life or death.
Right, we tap into reserves we didn't know were there. And he brings in the placebo effect to reinforce this idea that our minds are far more powerful than we often realize in dictating physical outcomes.
Yes, exactly. The placebo effect brilliantly demonstrates how our physical abilities are profoundly influenced by our mental strength and belief. Our expectations shape our reality. He cites a 2008 study in the European Journal of Neuroscience where participants were given simple sugar pills, but were told they were caffeine. They then put significantly more effort into weightlifting and even reported feeling increased strength and energy. This confirms that the brain chooses an outcome and then does what is required to make sure that the outcome is achieved. If you truly believe you have more in you, your brain will actively work to make it so, releasing the necessary chemicals and mobilizing energy reserves.
That's the mind-body connection in powerful action. Incredible. What about arousal control, and specifically box breathing? This sounds like a practical tool for managing stress and staying calm in high-stakes situations.
This refers to controlling the body's natural fight, flight, or freeze response, which the SEALs absolutely master. When we get stressed or anxious, our bodies release cortisol and adrenaline, which can actually impair the prefrontal cortex, our rational decision-making center. We get flustered. Box breathing is a simple yet incredibly effective technique to regain control in those moments. You simply breathe in slowly for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, breathe out slowly for 4 seconds, and then hold the exhale for 4 seconds. Repeat. This rhythmic process helps bring the heart rate back to normal, calms the nervous system, allowing the mind to remain calm to operate at your full potential. It's a technique you can use anywhere, anytime to manage anxiety and stress, totally discreetly.
A practical tool for anyone facing high pressure, whether it's a presentation or just a difficult conversation. Great. And then there's the 10X rule from Grant Cardone. This sounds like it's about setting aggressively ambitious goals, thinking bigger.
It is, absolutely. Cardone's core principle is to set goals 10 times higher than the desired outcome you initially thought of. This then immediately forces you to take 10 times more action than you might have planned. The aim is to make you fundamentally reevaluate your possibilities and the comprehensive steps required, pushing you far beyond your current expectations and comfort zone. Using the weight loss example again, instead of aiming to lose 10 pounds, aim for 100 pounds. Now, even if you don't actually need to lose 100 pounds, that much larger goal immediately encourages you to think differently, maybe implementing permanent diet and exercise changes as a fundamental lifestyle, rather than just a temporary fix to lose 10 pounds. It's about raising your standards beyond the low goals we often unconsciously set for ourselves to avoid feeling worthless if we fail. It forces a bigger perspective.
Right. It changes the entire scope of action required. It's about maximizing potential and pushing past comfort zones to achieve a whole new level of results, even if you don't hit the 10X target. The actions you take will be bigger. And the final technique in this segment, the 10-minute rule. This has a surprising origin, doesn't it? Something about chimpanzees being better at delaying gratification than humans.
It does, and it reveals a lot about human psychology, maybe not in the most flattering way. A Harvard University study actually found that chimpanzees chose to wait for more treats 72% of the time, while humans, surprisingly, only waited 19% of the time in a similar setup. The problem, Walter explains, seems to lie in our overdeveloped human brain. We overthink the decision, we rationalize, we make complex excuses that ultimately cheat ourselves out of a more favorable outcome. We struggle to differentiate between genuine justification and mere excuse-making. Our big brains get in the way.
Okay, so we overthink ourselves out of better choices. How do we apply the 10-minute rule to combat that impulse?
It's beautifully simple, actually. If you have an immediate craving or urge, say for that bag of chips or to check your phone when you should be working, you pause for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. Then after the 10 minutes, you ask yourself if you genuinely still want it or need to do it. If the desire persists, okay, maybe you wait another 10. This deliberately eliminates the immediate gratification, forces you to engage your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, enhances your decision-making skills, and consistently raises your discipline levels each time you practice it. It applies to anything, from getting off the treadmill when tired, challenge yourself to just do another 10 minutes, to resisting the urge to check social media constantly. Walter concludes this segment by reiterating that discipline isn't easy or innate, but everyone has the ability to live a more disciplined life if they choose to. It's always a choice.
Okay, the journey to self-discipline is rarely a straight line, right? Many of us know what we should do, but we don't do it. In this next segment, we're talking about recognizing and overcoming discipline hurdles. Walter likens these hindrances to energy vampires that subtly suck your life force and stop you from reaching your full potential. I like that image.
That's a perfect analogy, because they often work behind the scenes, draining you without you even realizing it. He addresses the core question. If most people understand that discipline leads to success and fulfillment, why do so few truly achieve it consistently? He points to these stealth ways that discipline can evade you, like ingrained negative thought patterns, having the wrong motivations, or simply not being aware of certain psychological biases that undermine our best intentions.
And the first one he brings up is Parkinson's law. That's a fascinating observation about time and work.
Yes. Cyril Parkinson's famous observation basically states that when we have a set amount of time available, we will fill that time with the work. Work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. You originally noticed this in the British Civil Service. As bureaucracy expanded, efficiency paradoxically decreased because tasks were subconsciously made more challenging to fill the allotted time, like a gas expanding to fill its container. People made simple things complicated. Conversely, when people were given tight deadlines, they miraculously found ways to simplify tasks and get them done efficiently. The solution, Walter advises, is to actively set yourself tight deadlines for your tasks, to encourage efficiency, avoid overcomplicating things unnecessarily, and ultimately free up valuable time. Create productive pressure.
So if you give yourself 2 weeks to do something that could realistically be done in 2 days, it will almost certainly take the full 2 weeks because you subconsciously let it expand. That makes so much sense, yet we rarely apply it consciously. Okay, next hurdle. Discipline versus procrastination. This seems like a constant, universal battle for so many of us, the urge to put things off.
It is, absolutely. Procrastination is essentially the act of convincing ourselves that we're waiting for the right time or the right circumstances to begin. We tell ourselves stories. Walter uses the classic example of skipping the gym entirely because your legs are sore, when you could easily do cardio or work your arms or core instead. It's an excuse for inaction. He defines true self-discipline, again, as doing what you need to do whether you feel like it or not, and he pulls no punches here, stating very clearly, inaction and making excuses are identical twins. There is no difference between them because they both lead to the same destination, failure. Ouch.
That's blunt. He also highlights the uncomfortable truth that those perfect circumstances for starting something important, they simply don't exist. There will always be something seemingly getting in the way.
Exactly. If you're waiting for less stress at work to finally quit smoking, you'll likely never quit. Because when is work ever stress-free? Self-doubt is a completely normal feeling when you're stepping out of your comfort zone or pushing your boundaries. But the key takeaway is the right time to start is now, even if you don't feel that you are ready for it. Readiness is a feeling, not always a reality. He also warns against the trap of over-planning, which often becomes a sophisticated form of procrastination. Too much time planning means less time spent doing, and significantly increases the chances of never starting at all. Analysis paralysis. The key, he says, is to start working on your project and figure out the details as you go, adapting and learning along the way. Just begin.
And society's constant push for perfection, especially with social media showing curated lives, also subtly feeds this procrastination, doesn't it? Makes us afraid to start if it won't be perfect immediately.
Yes, absolutely. It creates an impossible ideal and fosters a paralyzing fear of failure or judgment. As a powerful antidote to this perfectionism trap, Walter offers the 70% rule. The rule is, get to work when you are 70% certain that you will succeed. The profound insight here is that 100% certainty simply doesn't exist in anything meaningful, and waiting for it is just a form of procrastination. If you want to run a marathon but can only comfortably run 2 miles right now, that's your 70% mark, your starting point. Start there, he says. Commit to the process, and consistency will build you up to the finish line. Don't wait until you feel you can run 26 miles before starting training.
I love that. 70% ready is ready enough. Okay, finally in this section, he addresses false hope syndrome. This sounds like setting yourself up for inevitable disappointment by being overly optimistic.
It is exactly that. The belief that it's easy to change your patterns of behavior, which then leads to setting our expectations too high, which results in failure. We overestimate how quickly or easily we can change. This initial failure, stemming from unrealistic expectations, then subtly reinforces the very behavior we desire to change, creating a self-defeating loop of trying, failing, and feeling worse. Professor Peter Herman confirms that failure in behavior change is far more common than success, precisely due to this tendency to aim for extreme transformation that we are incapable of sustaining in the long run. We bite off more than we can chew.
So it's not about expecting overnight success or magical transformation. Change takes time and effort.
Not at all. Walter stresses that it takes time to achieve big dreams. Most successful people experience serious turmoil and countless setbacks on their path. We only see the highlight reel, not the struggle. He strongly encourages self-awareness here, asking us to take note of your actions. Are there any ways you are subconsciously self-sabotaging? Maybe by setting unrealistic goals doomed to fail. This segment's core message is about recognizing these insidious mental traps: Parkinson's law, procrastination, the perfection myth, false hope, and actively, consciously countering them with realistic strategies.
Right, becoming aware is the first step. Now, in this next section, we're going to tackle one of the most fundamental truths about self-discipline, something we've touched on but need to really dive into. There's nothing comfortable about self-discipline. It's not meant to feel easy, or it's not about indulging in junk food or binge-watching TV shows. It fundamentally demands endurance and mental toughness to push through our natural instincts towards ease and comfort.
That's the uncomfortable truth, isn't it? Walter states plainly that unless you have a truly strong, burning desire, that deep why we talked about, to achieve something significant, most people will inevitably gravitate toward the path of least resistance. That path looks like waking just in time for work, eating whatever's easy when hungry, sleeping when tired, basically defaulting to comfort and immediate gratification. Discipline means deliberately pushing past those instincts, consciously choosing the harder path when it serves your long-term goals, especially when you don't feel like it.
So the powerful idea here is to actually practice being uncomfortable. How do we do that in a practical sense? Intentionally seek discomfort.
Yes, in manageable ways. Willpower, like any muscle, can be significantly strengthened by doing things on a regular basis that make you feel uncomfortable, intentionally. This not only familiarizes you with the feeling of discomfort, making it less scary, but also helps you develop a greater tolerance for it over time. You build resilience. He directly links confronting discomfort to dismantling fears, using that powerful acronym, false evidence appearing real. Fear often exaggerates the potential negative outcome. Every single time you consciously step out of your comfort zone, even in small ways, your willpower and your tolerance for discomfort undeniably increase. You prove to yourself you can handle it.
And he brings in Jia Zhang's famous TED Talk and his 100 Days of Rejection. That's such a powerful and frankly terrifying but inspiring story of embracing discomfort.
It truly is. Jiang deliberately sought out rejection every day for 100 days to overcome his paralyzing social anxiety. He did things like asking to play soccer in a complete stranger's backyard or asking for a burger refill, things designed to get a no. The outcome was transformative. He became confident and sociable, and perhaps more profoundly, he realized people's kindness and willingness to help was far greater than he had ever imagined. His fears were mostly unfounded. Walter's core lesson from Jiang is beautifully simple and actionable. Whatever you are comfortable with, do the opposite. If you tend to be passive, practice being assertive in small ways. If you never speak to strangers, introduce yourself to one person. If you hate dancing, take a dance class. The goal isn't just discomfort for its own sake, but turning what feels like agonizing pain into a slight pinch, where the feeling of discomfort becomes a familiar signal of progress and growth, not a stop sign.
That's a brilliant reframe. Discomfort means you're growing, pushing boundaries, getting stronger. Love that. And then there's urge surfing. This sounds like a strategic way to handle cravings or temptations without just giving in or white-knuckling it.
It's a remarkably powerful technique, actually, pioneered by psychologist Alan Marlett, who is an addiction expert. He famously compared urges to waves in the sea, like waves. Urges rise up and down in intensity and eventually meet the shore and crash.
Yeah.
They don't last forever. The core idea is that you can actively learn to surf over those urges until they crash. It teaches you to resist temptation and fully embrace the temporary discomfort of the urge itself without giving in or fighting it head on.
So you're not trying to suppress the urge or fight it. You're simply observing it, acknowledging it, and allowing it to pass naturally, like watching a wave roll in and roll out.
Precisely. Walter recommends paying close attention to where the urge manifests in your body. Maybe a tightness in your stomach, a feeling in your chest, physically and emotionally. Then, focus your attention on those sensations, breathe deeply for maybe 2 minutes, and consciously imagine the sensations as waves rising and falling, peaking and then receding. The key mental shift is crucial here. Instead of thinking, I feel like eating cake, you consciously reframe it as, I am noticing an urge to eat a piece of cake. This creates a vital separation between you and the urge, allowing it to pass without identifying with it or being controlled by it. Fighting urges, counterintuitively, often makes them stronger and longer lasting. Observing them from a calm, detached distance increases your chances of overcoming them.
That makes sense. Like trying not to think about something just makes you think about it more. And he debunks the common idea that distraction works long-term or that suppressing thoughts makes them disappear. Like the classic don't think about a pink elephant example.
Exactly. Trying to suppress thoughts or distract yourself constantly only makes them stronger and more persistent when they inevitably pop back up. Urge surfing, however, leaves you calm and in control because you're not trying to trick your mind or fight a losing battle against the wave. You're riding it. Walter provides 5 clear, actionable steps for urge surfing. First, pay attention to where the urge is coming from in your body. Second, focus your attention on that specific area, observing the physical sensations without judgment. Third, spend 2 minutes consciously focusing on your breath, slowly and deeply. Fourth, vividly imagine the sensations and urges as waves rising, peaking, and falling. And fifth, pay attention to the changes as the urge eventually settles and dissipates on its own. He reassures us that all urges are temporary, much like hunger pangs. They will pass if you don't feed them. Consistency, he stresses, builds confidence, proving to yourself again and again that you can successfully ride the wave.
That's a fantastic technique, really empowering. And this leads us directly to a fundamental shift in how we approach achievement. Focus on the system, not just the goal. This feels like a really important distinction.
It's a profound shift in perspective, yes. Walter challenges the common, almost singular focus on outcomes, noting that research suggests very few people achieve their goals when their only focus is the end result, the finish line. The problem, he argues, isn't necessarily the goal itself, but rather the system they are following or not following. A goal is the result you want. A system is the consistent process, the daily actions you undertake to get there.
So like a football coach focusing intently on daily practice habits, drills, team cohesion, nutrition, the system, rather than just fixating on winning the championship trophy, the goal.
Perfect analogy. The only way to win is to improve your playing skills, and you can only do that through practice, through the system. While goals are necessary for providing direction and motivation, too much focus on them without a robust, repeatable system inevitably leads to failure, like the staggering 92% of New Year's resolutions that fall flat, as he points out. They have the goal, but no system.
And he makes a powerful point about winners versus losers in, say, the Olympics. Every single Olympian wants to win gold, the goal, but only one actually gets it. The difference, he says, isn't the goal, it's the system.
Yes, the underlying strategy, the training regimen, the daily habits, the coaching, the whole system. He then brilliantly explains why goals don't last without habit change. He uses the relatable messy bedroom example. Tidying it up once, achieving the outcome, doesn't solve the underlying untidy habits. The system is flawed. The mess just comes back. The same applies to yo-yo dieting. Crash dieting, focusing only on the outcome, doesn't fix unhealthy eating habits. The system. The weight comes back. He succinctly states, when you solve problems at the level of the result, you only get a temporary outcome. Once you resolve the inputs, the system, the outputs, the results will resolve themselves. Fix the system, and the results follow.
Wow, fix the inputs. And this singular, goal-focused approach can even inadvertently limit your happiness along the way, can't it? Makes it all about the destination, not the journey.
It absolutely can. It creates this artificial either-or conflict. You're either a success if you hit the goal, or a failure if you don't. And you often push happiness off to some future version of yourself. I'll be happy when I lose the weight, get the promotion. You're always chasing the next achievement. A system-based approach, however, means as long as your system is running, you have the right to be happy because you know you're working toward your end goal. You find satisfaction in the process itself. The main aim of a system is to keep playing the game, fostering continuous improvement and inherent satisfaction in the daily effort, rather than just waiting for single, often fleeting accomplishments. Fall in love with the process.
Fall in love with the process. I like that. And then he introduces the layers of change, comparing it to peeling an onion. This seems to get to the deepest, most fundamental layer of all for making change stick.
It is truly the core. This is maybe the most important concept in the book for long-term change. He defines 3 distinct layers of behavior change. 1, the outcome. This is a top layer, focusing on your explicit goals. Example, lose 20 pounds, write a book, win first place. It's about changing your results. 2, the process. This middle layer focuses on changing your habits and systems. Example, implementing a daily workout routine, creating an organized desk, starting a meditation practice. It's about changing your actions. 3, your identity. This is the deepest layer, the core. Your success, Walter argues, is dependent upon changing your identity. This means truly transforming your belief system and change the way you think about yourself, others, and the world in general. It's about changing who you are.
Okay, so focusing only on outcomes, layer 1, leads to short-lived changes, like crash dieting just for a wedding. Focusing on the process, layer 2, is better, building habits. But layer 3, identity change, is what makes it truly stick and become effortless.
Exactly. The smoking example powerfully illustrates this. Someone saying, I'm trying to give it up, layer 2 focus, still implicitly holds a smoker identity, which creates internal conflict and makes relapse likely. Whereas someone who says, I don't smoke, layer 3 focus, signifies a fundamental, unwavering identity shift. They no longer see themselves as a smoker. That's the key. Walter argues that there is a belief system behind every action. If your behavior consistently contradicts your core beliefs about yourself, your identity, it simply won't last. Think about people who try to save money but deep down see themselves as spenders, or people who try to eat healthy but see themselves as someone who loves junk food. The identity wins.
So the real lasting work is in changing your belief system, changing your identity. How does he illustrate that? Can you give an example?
He shares Brian Clark's fascinating nail-biting story. Clark apparently stopped biting his nails, a lifelong habit, not just through brute willpower, but by fundamentally changing his identity related to his nails. When he got a professional manicure for the first time, maybe on a whim, he saw how genuinely nice his nails looked. He had an aha moment. He shifted from seeing himself as someone who destroys his nails to someone who grooms them and takes pride in their appearance. This new identity, this pride, simply outweighed the old ingrained habit. The desire to maintain the nice nails became stronger than the urge to bite.
That's fascinating. So when good habits become woven into your sense of self, your identity, the desire to maintain that new self becomes stronger than the urge to revert to old ways. It sounds almost effortless at that point.
Precisely. Your good habits will not last if they don't become a part of your identity. Motivation to achieve goals won't make what you're doing a lifestyle. Lifestyle change requires identity change. He powerfully reframes goal setting through the lens of identity. Instead of setting a goal to read one book, set your goal to become a person who reads consistently. That's an identity. Instead of setting a goal to run a marathon, set your goal to become a runner. Instead of setting a goal to learn how to play the piano, set your goal to become a musician. This makes the desired behavior feel natural and effortless because it aligns with who you truly believe you are or are becoming.
Wow, that shifts everything. And he warns that negative self-identities, like telling yourself, I'm always late or my math skills are terrible, can act as subconscious programming, almost actively repelling any action that doesn't align with those self-limiting beliefs. You live down to your identity. The profound solution, then, is to consciously unlearn your current habits and, more importantly, the identities that underpin them.
Absolutely. It's about consciously dismantling those old restrictive identity statements, recognizing them as just stories you've told yourself, maybe based on past experiences, and actively replacing them with a new, empowering narrative about who you choose to be now. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, let's transition now to a truly ancient and profound source of wisdom that connects beautifully to modern discipline, Zen philosophy. This sounds like a powerful, maybe unexpected, but deeply insightful connection.
It truly is. Walter introduces Zen not just as a religion, but as an ancient philosophy that offers a profound path to cope with life's inevitable challenges, reduce anxiety, and even, as he notes, help us overcome deep-seated fears, potentially including the fear of death itself. He highlights that over the last 2 decades, extensive research has consistently shown Zen practitioners to exhibit superior psychological health. He cites Penn State University research specifically confirming that Zen practices like meditation can reduce stress, help you make better decisions, and induce feelings of calm, all crucial for discipline.
So Zen provides a powerful, timeless foundation for self-discipline by helping with things like goal accomplishment, overcoming fear, managing emotions, and even delaying gratification in a very fundamental way. What are some of the core Zen concepts we need to understand to see this connection?
Well, satori, a Japanese term meaning a flash of inspiration or sudden enlightenment, is a key concept, though maybe a bit esoteric for our purposes here. More practically, the fundamental ideas are living completely in the present moment and fostering a deep, interconnected belief that everything in the world is connected, which helps transcend the artificial separation of I and you, reducing ego-driven conflict. To understand this more deeply, he briefly touches on Buddha's life journey, which is really the origin story.
Right, Buddha's profound journey from immense luxury and privilege to a deeper understanding of universal suffering.
Yes. Buddha's core teachings centered on 2 main concepts. First, suffering is a natural, inescapable part of human life. We can't avoid it entirely. And second, crucially, in most cases, we are responsible for the suffering we endure through our attachments, our cravings, our aversions, and our rigid perceptions. His ultimate conclusion was that to find true meaning, inner peace, and balance, we must learn to let go of self, meaning the rigid ego, and cease seeking constant external validation through things like material possessions or social status. This allows one to lead a balanced life focused on genuine moral development and inner contentment rather than chasing external rewards.
That brings us to living in the present moment. This is such a core Buddhist and Zen tenet, but how does it specifically aid self-discipline in a practical day-to-day way? It sounds almost passive.
It's actually incredibly active and central. Buddhists believe the past is merely interpretations and memories, often flawed, and the future is simply a realm of worries and anxieties, which may or may not happen. Both pull us away from the only reality we have now. Living completely in the present avoids unnecessary suffering from regretting what's already happened or obsessing over what might happen. Walter connects this powerfully to self-identity, pointing out that rigid ideas that we hold about who we are as individuals is self-limiting. If you constantly define yourself by past failures, I always mess up, or future anxieties, I'll never succeed, you limit your ability to act effectively now.
He gives a really clear example of the high achiever trap here, showing how a rigid, future-focused identity based on external validation can actually lead to a lot of pain and hinder discipline.
Yes, it's a great example. He describes how a self-image built solely on being a high achiever, maybe constantly driven by external praise and grades since childhood, leads to immense internal pressure, a high risk of burnout, and a petrifying fear of failure. This relentless chase for the next qualification, the next accolade, he notes, doesn't actually bring permanent happiness. You get the thing, feel good for a moment, then you need the next thing. When failure inevitably happens, because it always does, such a rigid self-image can be totally destroyed because it signals a perceived loss of control and worth. Zen offers a profound alternative path focused on inner development, rather than this relentless external validation hamster wheel.
Okay, so how do these Zen principles specifically help us master self-discipline in a practical, day-to-day way? What are the key takeaways?
He boils it down to 3 key ways. First, by accepting suffering, recognizing that there's no escape from the discomfort inherent in growth and working towards meaningful goals. This prepares you mentally to push through challenges instead of expecting it to be easy. Second, mind control. Training your mind to focus intently on the present moment, truly appreciating it, instead of wasting precious mental energy on regrets about the past or debilitating rumination about the future. This frees up focus for the task at hand. And third, overcoming fear. Realizing that most fear stems from thinking the worst, from catastrophizing about negative possibilities. Learning to consciously stop focusing on those negative outcomes leads to incredible clarity, calmness, and better decision-making, which are foundations of discipline.
But here's a question. If Zen is all about living in the present, how does that align with goal attainment and future planning, which are inherently future-oriented? It seems like a contradiction on the surface.
That's a common question, and Walter clarifies it well. Zen is not opposed to future planning or achieving success. Buddha's own Eightfold Path, for instance, explicitly includes proactive goals like right speech, right view, and right action. These are intentions for future conduct. Living fully in the present, he explains, actually helps with goals by enabling you to focus entirely on the small steps required right now, right in front of you, rather than feeling overwhelmed and demotivated by the perceived vast distance to a large future goal. It prevents you from getting bogged down by what you don't yet have, allowing full focus and energy on what you can do now. It makes big goals manageable.
That makes sense. Focus on the step, not the summit. And he uses the Shaolin monks as a prime example of mastering self-discipline the Zen way. These are truly some of the most disciplined people on the planet. Legendary, almost.
They really are, an incredible embodiment of these principles in action. He delves into their history, founded way back around 1500 years ago by Buddhapadra, who integrated deep spiritual practice with rigorous martial arts training, leading to incredible feats and techniques like the legendary Iron Head. Their daily life is incredibly disciplined, almost unimaginable to us, starting at 5 a.m., ending at 11 p.m., focused intensely on temple duties, hours of kung fu practice, and deep Buddhism study. They live with very few material possessions and commit to grueling physical, spiritual, and mental training daily.
Wow. So what are their secrets to achieving such an extraordinarily high level of self-discipline, according to Matthew Ahmet's observations from actually living with them?
Ahmet identified 3 key factors. First, gratitude from simplicity. Living with extremely basic facilities, like no running water, having to hand wash clothes, fosters profound gratitude for the smallest things, which leads to positive mental health and a deep inner encouragement for achieving their demanding goals. They appreciate everything. Second, true happiness is purpose, not possessions. Most do not envy those who live normal lives with more comforts, because they understand that true happiness comes from finding your mission or passion. In their case, constant physical and spiritual progress. This passion becomes their unwavering vehicle to push through immense challenges. And third, critically, avoiding burnout through balance. Monks are incredibly disciplined, but they don't push themselves foolishly to the point of injury. They recognize the vital need for rest, relaxation, and recovery. They truly understand that you don't need to be busy constantly to be productive. Meditation helps them balance intense hard work with necessary downtime, building profound psychological strength and reducing mind chatter.
Balance is key, even for them. And he mentions their concept of qi and emotional control, linking it directly to their martial arts training and resilience.
Yes. Kung Fu practitioners learn deep emotional control because it's absolutely essential for effective fighting and overall well-being. You can't fight effectively if you're panicked or enraged. Qi, which can mean temper, air, or energy, is a fundamental concept, and its mastery in practices like Tai Chi leads to incredible balance and concentration. Monks' astonishing resilience to injury, even from seemingly fatal blows and demonstrations, is often attributed to their ability to consciously redirect their energy, or Qi. And for them, meditation is not just a separate practice. It is truly a way of life, leading them to discover their purpose and passion, allowing them to wake each day with energy and excitement, fueled by a profound inner conviction. Walter even draws a direct comparison between the Shaolin monks and the Navy SEALs we discussed earlier, highlighting their shared core traits. Both groups are exceptionally disciplined. Both are willing to give up short-term comforts for attaining long-term goals, and both rigorously stick to demanding daily routines. Different paths, similar mindset.
Fascinating. So whether through ancient philosophy or modern elite military training, the spiritual and the practical really align to forge ultimate discipline. And that brings us nicely to our next segment, practical meditation for discipline and focus. This is where we get into the concrete how-to for our listeners who might be inspired to try it.
Yes, and it's crucial to first dispel some common myths about meditation that might put people off. Walter clarifies that it's not necessarily a boring practice involving sitting cross-legged for hours humming. That's a stereotype. Instead, he presents it as potentially a lifestyle, a way of training the mind, and it absolutely doesn't require hours of your time to be beneficial. Even short, consistent practice helps. The benefits are profound and directly related to discipline. It demonstrably increases concentration and focus, significantly boosts your ability to make rational decisions and delay instant gratification, and develops the profound capacity to respond to tragic circumstances with a rational and calm outlook rather than reacting impulsively.
And there's solid scientific evidence to back this up, right? It's not just ancient wisdom or anecdotal reports anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Modern science is catching up to ancient wisdom here. He cites a PNAS study, for example, which showed compelling results in just 7 days. In that study, 40 undergraduate students meditating just 20 minutes a day for only 5 days reported feeling significantly less anxious, less stressed, and less tired than a control group who didn't meditate. That's a quick impact. This directly translates to improved productivity and self-discipline because, as Walter puts it, even when you are not motivated to do what needs to be done, the skills you learn through meditation like focus and emotional regulation will push you through. It builds that inner resilience and control.
Okay, so it's about building that inner strength and resilience which underpins discipline. And Walter provides detailed, practical instructions for several specific meditation techniques. First, the just sitting technique, also known as Zazen in Zen.
This is a fundamental seated meditation, very accessible. Walter advises finding a comfortable posture, whether that's in a chair with feet flat on the floor, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, or maybe even a lotus position if you're flexible. The key is a straight but not rigid back. Good posture helps alertness. Keep your mouth gently closed but not clamped, and your eyes can be either closed or open with a soft, unfocused gaze directed towards the floor about 2 feet ahead. Critically, he advises avoiding doing this in bed, as the association with sleep might just make you drift off. The primary focus then shifts to the mind itself and how you direct your attention.
And for mind focus within Zazen, he offers 2 main options. The first is simply focusing on your breathing.
Yes, this is a very common and effective anchor. You pay deliberate attention to the physical sensation of your breath as a way to quiet the constant mind chatter. Simply observe your natural inhales and exhales, feeling the air move through your nostrils or mouth, noticing the rise and fall of your abdomen. The emphasis here is on stomach breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, rather than shallow chest breathing. Proper deep breathing maximizes oxygen flow, which Walter notes has numerous health benefits, including helping to calm panic attacks and anxiety by balancing oxygen levels and calming the nervous system.
Okay, focus on the breath. The second technique, the shikantaza technique, or just sitting without a specific focus point. This sounds a bit more advanced, maybe more challenging. Just letting thoughts pass.
It is slightly more challenging, especially initially, but incredibly powerful for developing awareness. Here, you sit and simply pay attention to what is going on around you and within you, without choosing a specific anchor like the breath. The goal is to acknowledge each thought, feeling, or sensation as it arises in your awareness, then gently let it go, without judgment, without getting carried away by it, without engaging with its story. Walter uses the helpful analogy of thoughts being like clouds floating along in the sky. You simply observe them passing by without getting caught up in them or trying to change them. This practice, over time, allows negative thoughts to lose their power over you, redirects mental energy towards productive focus, and profoundly empowers your ability to control your mind rather than being controlled by it.
And he addresses the inevitable mind wandering, which I'm sure is a common experience for anyone trying to meditate for the first time. It's so easy to get frustrated when your mind just won't stay still.
Absolutely. Thoughts like, this is stupid, I'm doing it wrong, or you just think too much, are completely normal, and actually part of the process of noticing how busy the mind is. The crucial advice is not to condemn yourself for these thoughts or get frustrated. Instead, gently, patiently, without judgment, just refocus your attention back to your chosen anchor, like the breath, or simply back to observing. Each time you notice you've wandered and gently return, that is the practice. That's the mental push-up. It's a skill that undeniably improves with consistent practice, especially for those of us accustomed to fast-paced Western lifestyles that encourage constant mental stimulation. Walter reassures listeners that a noticeable sense of calmness and increased control should begin to emerge within about 7 days of consistent daily practice.
Okay, so be patient with yourself. And for those who find sitting still really difficult, maybe due to physical discomfort or severe anxiety, there's Kinhin or Zen walking meditation. That's a wonderful alternative, allows for movement.
This is a fantastic option, yes. You remove your shoes and socks to feel the ground. Stand straight, but not stiff, with your weight evenly distributed, feeling grounded. You position your hands traditionally. One thumb tucked into the palm, fingers wrapped around it, then the right hand gently clasps over the left fist, resting against your stomach just above the belly button. Your gaze should be soft, directed towards the floor about 6 feet ahead. The movement involved taking one slow, controlled step forward with the right foot, coordinating one step per full inhale and exhale cycle. You typically move slowly and mindfully in a clockwise direction around a room or path. This practice, he says, develops an incredible amount of self-discipline through the mindful control of movement, proving your ability to master your body and mind together. This mastery then profoundly translates to a more proactive, stronger mental attitude in all areas of life.
So even just walking mindfully with focus and intention can be a profound act of discipline training. The core advice here seems to be to start small with maybe just 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes in the morning, and 5 minutes in the evening. Consistency over duration.
Yes, consistency, even in small doses, is absolutely key to building the habit and reaping the benefits. And he ends this segment with a powerful transition to our next topic. Don't try to meditate, just do it, which leads directly into the broader idea of eliminating the word try from your vocabulary entirely when it comes to your goals.
That's a powerful segue. So let's dive into the mindset of the achiever. Do, don't try. Walter says removing the word try from your vocabulary is one of the most helpful things you can do right now. It sounds incredibly simple, maybe even semantic, but it feels like it holds a lot of weight psychologically.
He argues that words carry immense power. They profoundly influence the way you see yourself and how far you succeed. The word try subtly shapes your self-perception, often limiting it before you even begin. It implies a lack of full commitment, doesn't it? It leaves room for failure, almost builds in an excuse beforehand. Well, at least I tried.
Exactly, and it challenges that deeply ingrained childhood conditioning. You mentioned it before, phrases like, at least you tried, or it's the taking part and not the winning that's important. Those feel good and comforting in the moment, especially when we fail, but they might actually be holding us back from real achievement.
Exactly. These well-meaning sentiments, Walter explains, can inadvertently create a comfortable acceptance of mediocrity, suggesting it's okay if you don't succeed, there will be other opportunities. But in the harsh light of reality, as he points out, there are going to be times when you won't get another chance to make it right, seize an opportunity, or achieve something crucial. Sometimes the stakes are high. The new imperative, the mindset shift he advocates is, from this day forward, you are not going to try, you are going to do. This shift in language reflects and reinforces a fundamental shift in commitment and intention.
Okay, so what are the tangible benefits of making this fundamental shift from trying to doing, beyond just, sounding more confident?
It immediately fosters decisiveness and courage. When you commit to do, you approach tasks differently. You'll experience a significant boost in self-respect because you're holding yourself to a higher standard. And crucially, you'll likely earn more respect from others, being perceived as a proactive winner, someone who gets things done rather than someone who just talks about trying. The real pitfall of try is that it implicitly says you are accepting that you're putting a limit on what you are capable of achieving. It allows for self-deception and settling for minimal effort, making true accountability incredibly difficult. By contrast, when you actually do, the evidence is there for you and others to see. It's simple. Did you go ahead and get the job done or not? Excuses, he says, have no residence in the duo mentality. It's about results and commitment.
It's about commitment and follow-through, so it's about becoming a doer, someone who acts decisively. What does that require from us internally?
It fundamentally requires trust in yourself and your abilities, but also, importantly, being realistic. You commit to do, but you set realistic goals. For example, don't commit to losing 100 pounds in 1 month. That's setting yourself up to fail. It involves taking an honest inventory of your strengths, weaknesses, and skills, which in itself is an act of self-discipline and self-awareness. If you know you have what it takes, then yes, go out there and get it done. Commit fully. If you realize you don't currently have the necessary skills or resources, don't just try to wing it. Instead, the do approach means you either actively ask for help or commit to acquire a new skill set required for the task. You do what's necessary to enable success.
Okay, so doing includes preparing properly or getting help, not just blindly charging ahead. What about preparation before starting a big project? How does doing apply there?
You need to be fully aware of what you want to achieve before you commit to doing it. Get crystal clear. Write it down in specific detail. If you're genuinely unsure about the goal or the path, it's better to delay starting than to commit half-heartedly and potentially waste precious time and energy. Or, worse, gain a reputation for starting things you don't finish. He reiterates the 70% rule here as well. Choose goals according to your realistic abilities, and once you're 70% confident that you can realistically do it with effort, then go for it. Commit. The mindset of trying often fosters negative visualization, what if I fail, and self-doubt. Conversely, The mindset of doing fosters powerful, positive visualization of successful completion. You expect to succeed.
That expectation makes a huge difference. He also stresses the importance of setting realistic goals and belief. Because if you don't truly believe you can do it, it's really hard to fully commit to do.
Absolutely. Belief fuels action. Successful people, he observes, believe they will succeed, and they keep pushing themselves harder. Precisely because of that underlying belief. It creates a positive feedback loop. He quotes Deepak Chopra, echoing the sentiment forcefully, "Don't try, do." For those who struggle to adopt this immediate do mindset, Walter suggests starting with smaller, highly achievable goals to build that foundational confidence muscle. Maybe something as small as 5 minutes of exercise daily that you know you can do it. And crucially, practice consistent, positive self-talk. Literally, remind yourself several times throughout the day that you're going to do it. Affirm your commitment. This clarity of direction and internal conviction makes you more likely to arrive at your destination.
Okay, don't try. It's a powerful shift. This leads us to the stark reality check he presents. Winner or loser, the habits that define you. It's a very binary, maybe even harsh way of looking at it, but probably effective.
Yes, it's intentionally stark to underscore the point about the power of habits. Walter states plainly that your habits will determine which category you fall into over the long run. He simplifies it down to a core decision you make every single day, with every action or inaction. You're either practicing going in the winner's direction or the losing direction. There's no neutral ground when it comes to habit formation. You're either reinforcing good habits or bad ones. He then outlines 5 basic rules for excellence, 5 core habits or principles to help you consciously choose and consistently reinforce the winning path.
Let's break those 5 rules down. Rule number 1, know what you want. This feels completely fundamental, but maybe often overlooked in its depth or specificity.
It is absolutely fundamental, yet so many people skip past the true depth required here. He uses the analogy of trying to drive to an unfamiliar destination without any directions or even a clear address. You'll just end up going in circles, wasting time, fuel, and getting frustrated. The more specific detail you add to your goal, the easier it's going to be for you to actually achieve it. Vague goals lead to vague results. But it's not just about dry facts and figures. It's about injecting emotion, saying, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, triple the amount of weight I can lift at the gym, and save enough money to buy 2 new outfits I feel great in, is far more inspiring and motivating than just clinically stating, lose 20 pounds. Humans are profoundly driven by emotion. Connect your goal to your feelings.
Okay, specificity plus emotion. And then the absolutely crucial question, why? What's the true, deep purpose behind your goal?
Absolutely critical. He asks, why do you really want to achieve this goal? It must align deeply with your core values and ultimate purpose to sustain you through the inevitable difficulties. He uses the example of someone wanting to write a book about overcoming depression. If the why is a deep passion to help others, stemming from personal experience, that passion becomes the unwavering vehicle that drives them through all the challenges of writing and publishing. You also need to honestly consider what you will need to sacrifice to get you to your final destination. Because, as he reminds us, there's no escape from pain or significant effort in any worthwhile pursuit. Change requires sacrifice. Considering these sacrifices up front, like maybe taking a second job for financial goals or consistently waking up an hour earlier for weight loss, helps you avoid disheartening surprises later and truly decide if the goal is genuinely worth the required cost before you commit.
Okay, rule 2, don't cut corners. This links right back to the whole don't try philosophy, doesn't it? Trying often involves looking for the easy way out.
It does. Directly. People who try are often, maybe subconsciously, planning their escape routes, looking for shortcuts or loopholes. True, lasting success demands doing things properly with integrity and full committed effort. Cutting corners undermines the process and often the result. He uses the weight loss example again. Taking pills or having surgery might achieve the outcome, weight loss. But there's often no real pride in cutting corners because it wasn't your own sustained effort, your discipline that got you there. He argues, you haven't really achieved anything internally because it wasn't your own efforts that got you there. It devalues the achievement in your own mind and doesn't build the muscle of discipline.
Right, you didn't build the underlying habits or character. Rule 3, don't make a big leap. This seems to combat that initial burst of enthusiasm that so often fizzles out when reality bites.
Precisely. This addresses the common pattern. Getting super excited, going all in with an initial burst of energy, maybe working out for hours the first week. But then motivation runs out as the reality of sustained effort sets in, and it feels overwhelming. The solution is a measured and sensible pace, sustainable progress. He suggests keeping a journal to monitor your consistent small steps and progress over time. While initial excitement is good, it's the consistent, sustainable pace that actually gets you to the finish line. Slow and steady often wins the race.
Rule 4. Repetition is the key to success. Nothing very glamorous or exciting about that one, is there? Just sounds like hard work.
Nothing glamorous at all. He uses becoming fluent in Spanish as a perfect example. It requires consistent, often tedious drills for vocabulary, grammar, spelling, and pronunciation, day after day. He acknowledges there's nothing fun about repetition for most people, and that frustration or missing days will inevitably happen. You'll fall off track sometimes. The crucial advice is just make sure you pick up where you left off and decide that you are going to recommit. Don't let one missed day derail everything. Avoid excuses, don't beat yourself up, just restart the repetition immediately.
Get back on the horse. Okay, and finally, Rule 5. Celebrate your wins. This seems absolutely essential for maintaining motivation and reinforcing that winner identity.
It is absolutely crucial. Using the marathon example again, don't just focus on the daunting 26.2-mile end goal months away. Celebrate the small milestones along the way, running 2 miles nonstop for the first time, then 5, then finishing your first 10K race, etc. The benefit is psychological. The more you win, the more you will start to see yourself as a winner, which powerfully reinforces your new identity and keeps you motivated to continue the system. Small wins build confidence and momentum. Walter concludes this important segment by reiterating a core belief. What you choose to focus on is what you will attract. As long as you take consistent action and believe in yourself, you will achieve it. Focus, action, belief.
Okay, let's delve into something really critical for long-term discipline, loving the process and channeling negative emotions. This is vital because, let's face it, initial excitement for new goals or systems often fades dramatically when the reality of the amount of work that is required sets in. We all know that feeling, the grind setting in.
We absolutely do. That's the core challenge, right? Because, as we've established, human beings naturally don't like stepping outside of their comfort zone. We prefer ease. Walter stresses that it's essential that you learn to enjoy the process no matter how difficult it is, or at least find ways to make it more palatable. Because relying solely on fleeting determination or motivation, which ebbs and flows, will inevitably lead to giving up when things get tough or boring. The work itself, the daily grind, needs to become intrinsically enjoyable, or at least consistently associated with positive feelings to make it sustainable.
And he brings in the power of association, referencing Pavlov's dogs again, to show how we can actually train ourselves to like the process. How can that classical conditioning help us love the grind?
Yes. Pavlov's famous 1890s study showed that dogs could be conditioned to salivate just at the sound of a bell, if that bell was consistently paired with the presentation of food. They learn to associate the bell with pleasure. Walter powerfully applies this to humans, arguing that we can make the process of disciplined action a lot easier by using the power of conditioning. We can create positive associations. The goal is to deliberately pair an unpleasant or difficult task with positive feelings, so that over time, through consistent repetition, you'll actually start to enjoy the task itself, or at least dread it less. He stresses again, this conditioning doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistency in pairing the task with the reward.
Okay, so how do we consciously form these positive associations in our own lives? He gives some really practical ideas for before, during, and after the task.
Yes, he breaks it down nicely. He suggests establishing pre-task rituals. This could be enjoying a favorite small snack or a special beverage right before starting a dreaded task, like tackling your business plan or studying, or perhaps listening to a specific motivational speaker's track or reading an inspirational article immediately before you begin to get you in the right frame of mind. Even something simple like taking a hot shower with a particularly pleasant scented gel can serve as a positive trigger, signaling it's time to do the work. The mind then begins to associate these pleasant experiences with the upcoming task.
Okay, prime the pump with something positive. And then what about during the task and after it's completed?
Right. During task support could involve playing specific kinds of light music without distracting lyrics, what some people call productivity music, or focused playlists easily found on YouTube, to create a positive, flowing atmosphere while you work. This can create a self-reinforcing cycle where the music signals focus time. Post-task rewards are also crucial, especially early on. After each work session, consistently give yourself a reward, like watching an episode of a favorite TV show, reading a chapter from a fun fiction book, or having a healthy treat. This trains your brain to link hard work and positive emotions. Eventually, the satisfaction of completing the hard work itself can become its own payoff because of the positive association and the feeling of accomplishment. He uses the gym example again. Creating a specific playlist of your absolute favorite high-energy songs just for workouts can make the mere thought of going to the gym pleasurable and acts as a powerful incentive to get you there.
That's a great practical tip. Use music strategically. And repetition again and again is the key here for the association to become automatic and truly change how you feel about the task.
Exactly. Over time, it will become as natural as brushing your teeth. He also ties this back beautifully to the concept of identity we discussed earlier. Consciously associate your success with your identity. Encourage yourself to vividly visualize the type of person you will become through this process. Maybe health conscious, energetic, someone for whom exercise is just a natural, enjoyable part of life. With every milestone you achieve, your new identity will become more realistic and solidified. And cultivating genuine gratitude for simply having the opportunity to improve your life, contrasting it with those perhaps too stressed or unwell to even dream of change, can be incredibly powerful. He even suggests using a simple gold star reward system on a visible calendar for daily achievements, like gym visits, a simple yet surprisingly powerful motivator often seen in childhood, but still effective for adults.
Yeah, sometimes those simple visual rewards really work. Okay, that's about making the process positive. Now, how do we make negative emotions work for you? This seems so counterintuitive. We usually try to avoid or suppress feelings like anger, envy, or sadness. How can they possibly help discipline?
It does seem counterintuitive, but Walter argues it's genuinely healthy to embrace your negative emotions rather than fighting them, and that they can actually be extremely beneficial for building self-discipline when channeled correctly. Instead of trying to suppress them or wish them away, which rarely works, view them as helpful signposts leading you in the direction of positive change, prompting deliberate action rather than just hoping they magically disappear. They contain energy and information.
Okay, using them as fuel or information. Let's look at specific emotions he mentions. First, anger and rage. How can these really intense, often destructive feelings be channeled positively?
He acknowledges our common childhood conditioning around anger, either learning to suppress it entirely or perhaps using it manipulatively. Neither is healthy. But he suggests channeling the potent physical charge that comes with anger into productive outlets, like intense gym routines, think punching a bag or lifting heavy weights, or using it as a powerful motivator for achieving long-term goals. For instance, using the anger and hurt from being mocked or underestimated about your weight or abilities as direct fuel to commit to positive change, proving detractors and maybe yourself wrong through sustained, disciplined action.
Turning spite into motivation, basically. Okay, what about envy? That often seems like such a destructive, corrosive emotion, just sparking comparison and bitterness. How can that be useful?
It certainly can be destructive if you just wallow in it. But Walter reframes envy as simply an indication that another person has something you desire or possesses a quality you admire. It's information about your own desires. So the action step is, if you're envious of someone's financial success or possessions, let that feeling motivate you to learn how you can generate more money or acquire those things through your own efforts. If you're jealous of someone's impressive weight loss, let that propel you to make a concrete plan for your own health journey. The key is to evaluate your feelings of envy and write out what you want and start working toward achieving those goals. It becomes a powerful call to action, revealing your own aspirations rather than just remaining a reason for negative comparison and resentment.
Okay, using envy as a signpost for your own goals. What about anxiety, that truly terrible feeling that can be so paralyzing for so many people? How can anxiety possibly work for you?
Walter acknowledges it's awful, but suggests your bad habit of worrying can actually work in your favor when you learn to redirect its energy. Fear, when used correctly, can be a powerful catalyst for success, not just a paralyzer. He identifies two main advantages anxiety can offer. First, the profound satisfaction you get from actually conquering your fears is itself a great way to stay motivated. You feel incredibly powerful when you do something despite being anxious. Second, that feeling of fear or anxiety can actually provide the foundation required to start taking constructive action. It signals a potential threat that needs addressing. He uses the example of fearing job loss. Instead of succumbing to paralyzing worry and doing nothing, use that fear to proactively shore up your finances, get relevant insurance, update your resume, maybe even plan a home redecoration project you can control. This transforms worry from a passive state into an active spark required to trigger problem solving and creative thinking. He emphasizes again, if you are afraid to make changes in your life, it is a positive sign. because it means you are genuinely stepping out of your comfort zone, which is where growth happens.
That's a fantastic reframe of anxiety as energy for preparation. Now, sadness and despair. These seem like the hardest emotions of all to channel constructively. They often feel like they just drain all energy.
They are definitely more difficult, he acknowledges, but still possible to harness if you approach them correctly. He explains that understanding sadness is often a temporary state is key. It won't last forever. Profound loss, like going through a divorce or the painful end of a friendship, often leads, perhaps surprisingly, to periods of deep self-reflection. Grief can bring unexpected clarity. Sometimes emerging from deep sadness helps you realize life is too short for trivial matters, making unimportant things lose their grip on you. This sudden shift in perspective can dramatically improve time management and focus, allowing you to channel your energy into something worthwhile, something that truly matters. He gives the powerful example of someone running a marathon for charity after losing a loved one to a specific illness, turning grief into positive action and meaning. He also cites a Ghent University study suggesting that creative professionals were often most productive when they were in not the best of moods. Negative states can sometimes fuel profound creative output. So, immersing yourself in creative outlets like writing, music, or art during sad periods can be incredibly therapeutic and productive.
Turning pain into art or action. Powerful. Finally, shame. This seems like a particularly destructive and isolating emotion, maybe the hardest to overcome.
He carefully distinguishes shame from guilt. Guilt, I did something bad, can be healthy, prompting apology and rectification. Shame, I am bad, by contrast, is a pervasive feeling of being unworthy or fundamentally flawed. Shame is a huge barrier because it destroys self-esteem, making it incredibly difficult to find the motivation or worthiness to put in the work required to move forward. If you feel fundamentally flawed, why bother trying? Brené Brown's solution, as cited by Walter, involves two critical steps to overcome shame. First, confide in someone trustworthy about what you feel shameful about. Finding empathy and acceptance from another person can make it easier to forgive yourself. Seeking professional help is also crucial if shame is deeply ingrained. Second, actively practicing letting go of shame fosters compassion for ourselves and those around us. It breaks the cycle of judgment, the benefit. Overcoming shame declutters your mind in order to focus on becoming all you were created to be. It removes a massive internal obstacle to self-discipline, growth, and positive action.
Decluttering the mind from shame. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, in this final segment, we're talking about the reality of effort and avoiding burnout. Because let's be real, it's natural to feel discouraged when you put in hours and hours of work and the results aren't what you hoped for, or they just don't appear immediately. Progress isn't always linear.
Absolutely. It's a very common experience. And Walter acknowledges this feeling of why bother when effort doesn't seem to equal reward directly. He explains why it's actually normal, even expected, to invest a lot of time without immediate proportional returns. He introduces two powerful principles that help maintain self-discipline and momentum despite this inherent uncertainty in any creative or entrepreneurial endeavor. Sturgeon's law and the Pareto principle. They help you calibrate your expectations about effort and results.
Okay, so what is Sturgeon's law? You mentioned it briefly before. It sounds like it might be a bit cynical, maybe. 90% of everything is rubbish. Theodore Sturgeon, a science fiction author, famously argued back in 1958 that, well, yes, maybe much of science fiction was low quality. It's possible to say the same thing about everything else. His point was that roughly 90% of everything is rubbish. Not necessarily literally bad, but that a large portion of any creative or productive output, movies, books, scientific papers, business ideas, might not hit the mark, gain traction, or yield significant results. Walter presents this not as cynicism, but as a vital tool for critical thinking and managing expectations. It suggests that it's normal for much of our effort to yield little, and that's simply the nature of putting things out into the world. Don't expect every shot to be a slam dunk.
Okay, manage expectations. And the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, that's a much more widely known business concept, right?
Yes, and incredibly applicable here beyond just business. Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist, observed way back in 1896 that roughly 80% of Italy's land was owned by only 20% of the population. He also famously noticed in his garden that 20% of his pea plants produced 80% of the best, healthiest pods. This became known as the law of the vital few. A small percentage of inputs often creates a large percentage of the outputs. It has broad applications, like 80% of a business's revenue often coming from 20% of its customers, or maybe 80% of your results coming from just 20% of your most focused, effective effort.
So how do these laws, Sturgeon's 90-10 and Pareto's 80-20, apply to us personally and our self-discipline journey? It sounds a bit discouraging at first glance, like maybe 80–90% of our efforts might be wasted.
Walter addresses that initial feeling head-on. If 90% of your work might be rubbish, and only 20% of your effort yields 80% of the results, why bother putting in all that potentially wasted effort? But he brilliantly turns it into motivation. These laws, he argues, encourage us to accept that it's the norm to work hard without having an assurance of what's going to yield the highest results and what won't.
You have to put in the volume to find the winners. He uses the compelling example of a fiction author again. They put tremendous effort into writing many books, maybe dozens, but often only one, or perhaps a small handful, become a smash hit that makes their career.
Okay. So knowing this beforehand prevents crushing discouragement when most of your efforts don't immediately pay off big. You know it's part of the process of finding the hits. Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of being deeply disappointed that other books failed or didn't perform as hoped, the author, armed with this understanding, is actually motivated and encouraged to keep writing because you know that success will be inevitable with at least one of your books if you keep producing quality work. It's a numbers game, partly. These principles help you keep a broader perspective, which is absolutely essential for maintaining your self-discipline and momentum through the inevitable ups and downs. It encourages working smarter by focusing on the high-impact 20%, but also working harder by putting in the necessary volume. Successful CEOs understand this implicitly. They take calculated risks, anticipate that many won't pan out, but know they only need a few big wins.
And there's actually a degree of uncertainty in this whole process that's maybe even exciting rather than just terrifying if you frame it right.
It is. Walter actually asks, how boring would that be if you knew for certain that everything you were doing was going to be a success? Where's the challenge? Where's the learning? Uncertainty, he argues, allows us to thrive, to push our creative and mental boundaries, to experiment. And if you persevere, your very best work might be just around the corner, emerging from those many attempts. Top performers fail all the time, often more than others because they try more things, but they understand that all they need is a couple of major successes to set them up for life.
That's a great perspective for resilience, and that leads us directly to how to handle failure. Since it's an inevitable part of the journey, according to these principles, mastering our response to it is absolutely key for long-term discipline.
Every failure, Walter stresses, contains a profound lesson if you look for it. He advises using losses not as stop signs, but as a springboard for future success. Evaluate what went wrong objectively, analytically, without getting emotionally hung up on the fact that it didn't work out or beating yourself up excessively. Learn and move on. At the very least, every failure provides the opportunity to practice self-discipline in the act of picking yourself up, analyzing, and trying again, perhaps differently. It builds resilience muscle. The biggest challenge here, he notes, is often emotional attachment, where pride will not allow them to walk away from a failing project even when all objective signs point to cutting losses. The sunk cost fallacy again. The true skill, the wisdom, lies in knowing when to give up gracefully on a specific project and start working on something else. The wisdom to determine when it's time to sacrifice a fantasy and build on what's working for you, even if it's smaller than the original dream.
Knowing when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. Crucial. Now, a truly critical aspect of this entire demanding journey, preventing burnout. Because self-discipline is vital, yes, but pushing too hard, too relentlessly, without recovery, can actually do you some serious lasting damage physically and mentally.
It's an absolutely critical balance to strike. Walter carefully contrasts temporary brain freeze, that feeling of being unable to function momentarily due to acute stress, which is usually resolved by a short break, with full-blown burnout. Burnout, he warns, is much more serious. It's a deeper physical and mental state that causes low mood, exhaustion, the inability to make decisions, and profound hopelessness. It can be so severe it requires professional psychiatric assistance to recover from, and he notes that anyone can potentially suffer from it, from a high-flying CEO to a single mother juggling responsibilities to a part-time employee feeling overwhelmed. It depends heavily on self-imposed pressure, personality traits like perfectionism, and individual coping skills. High achievers, ironically, are often particularly prone precisely because they push themselves so hard and relentlessly.
Okay, so it's a real danger, especially for disciplined people. How can we actively avoid it? What are the key strategies for prevention? Can we see it coming?
The good news, he says, is that burnout usually doesn't just creep up on you unexpectedly. There are often warning signs. Prevention is very much possible by consciously paying attention to how you are feeling, physically and mentally, and recognizing those early warning signs like chronic fatigue, cynicism, or reduced performance. Walter advises proactively capping self-discipline, which sounds counterintuitive, but means learning to say no to projects and tasks that leave you feeling chronically drained or that overload you beyond your capacity, setting boundaries, and vitally, maintaining a fundamentally healthy routine, ensuring you consistently get at least 7 hours of sleep per night, drink plenty of water, and eat a balanced diet. These aren't optional luxuries or wastes of time. They're fundamental investments that maintain your mental capacity and willpower reserves. You can't run on empty indefinitely.
So those basic healthy habits are not just for achieving specific goals like fitness, but for sustaining the very ability to be disciplined in the first place across all areas.
Exactly. They fuel the engine. He also stresses the profound need to take time out to relax properly. And properly means genuinely letting go of all thoughts about work, not checking your phone or emails constantly during downtime. True disconnection. Even the hyper-disciplined special forces and Shaolin monks build significant downtime and recovery into their rigorous schedules. They know it's essential. It's also helpful to shift your thought process. Try not to view demanding work solely as a burden, but perhaps frame it as a challenging task with long-term benefits that you are choosing to undertake. Reframing helps. And applying self-discipline proactively to your workload, meaning avoiding distractions and procrastination that lead to last-minute rushes, prevents backlogs that cause massive self-induced stress, and significantly increase the risk of burnout. Stay ahead of the curve.
Right, manage your energy, not just your time. That brings us to the importance of scheduling as a key burnout prevention tool. Planning ahead.
Scheduling is absolutely crucial, especially at the start of any significant project or commitment. It helps you work out a realistic estimate of the time and energy required and allows you to manage your resources effectively. If you're unsure how long something will take, he suggests seeking advice from experienced people or applying Walter's pragmatic 1.5 times longer rule of thumb. Just automatically assume that the project will take approximately 1.5 times longer than you had initially expected. If you finish early, fantastic. You have buffered time to relax or start your next project feeling ahead. If you do need the extra time, which often happens, it was anticipated, significantly reducing stress and highlighting potential problems or bottlenecks early on. He acknowledges the fear sometimes associated with scheduling. It often reveals just how heavy the workload is or highlights challenging tasks, but advises listeners to acknowledge your fears and take action regardless. Getting to the habit of realistic scheduling early dramatically reduces long-term stress and the risk of burnout.
Planning for reality, not fantasy. Okay, and what if someone listening feels they might have already reached burnout? What's the immediate action plan then?
If you suspect you're truly burned out, immediate drastic action is required. Walter advises, take some time off now to give your body and mind a complete break, ideally 1 or 2 weeks, maybe more, returning to work only when you feel fully recovered. Don't try to push through burnout. Inform your employer or clients as soon as possible. Be honest about needing time. Crucially, during the recovery period, reflecting on what you can learn from the experience is vital for preventing recurrence. Burnout isn't a sign of failure or weakness, but a clear signal that you need to fundamentally change your approach to work, boundaries, or self-care. He suggests making an actionable list of strategies to prevent future burnout based on your reflection, for example, committing to using the power of no more often when asked to take on extra work you can't handle. He concludes by acknowledging, striking the right balance between safeguarding your mental health and pushing yourself to the limit is a skill, and it will take a while before you perfect it. It's a lifelong learning process of self-awareness and adjustment.
Wow, what a journey. Well, you've just absorbed a really comprehensive deep dive on unlocking the power of self-discipline, drawing extensively from Daniel Walter's fantastic book, The Power of Discipline. Honestly, if you've listened to this entire conversation, you've already demonstrated an incredible amount of inherent discipline and focus right there. Seriously, as Walter might say. You are not average, neither are you ordinary. You are, by definition, for engaging with this, an extraordinary person taking control of your growth.
That's absolutely true. And Walter reminds us constantly that self-discipline is truly like a muscle. The more you use it, even in small ways, the stronger it becomes. It grows with practice. It's not about suddenly becoming Bill Gates overnight or instantly achieving monumental feats tomorrow. It's simply about making a start somewhere, however small, right now, today.
So, your mission now, listener, if you choose to accept it, is perhaps to take time out, reassess your life, and decide how you're going to start this journey. Don't make it difficult or overwhelming. Set realistic targets. Even something as tiny as adopting one new positive habit for just 5 minutes each day, or waking up just 15, maybe 30 minutes earlier than usual. Small steps, consistently taken, build massive momentum.
Absolutely. Jim Rohn famously said, "You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself."
Yeah.
Your better future starts with better decisions today. And taking full responsibility for the state of your life at this present moment without blame or excuse is the first, most courageous, most empowering step you can take.
It really is. And John Maxwell's profound wisdom resonates here too. Before you can help anyone, you must first help yourself. Your character behind closed doors, your personal discipline in the quiet moments when no one is watching, is ultimately more important and impactful than the character that people just see in public.
And if your biggest goals feel completely unattainable right now, if they seem impossibly far away, Walter assures us you're actually in a good place. That's okay. That's precisely how every truly successful person felt at the beginning of their own journey. What they wanted to achieve looked impossible, but they took action every single day, consistently, to get where they are now, day by day, brick by brick.
That's so encouraging. It's about the daily steps. And finally, consider the ultimate impact, the ripple effect. Whatever you truly want to achieve in life isn't just for you, is it? It's going to have an effect, a ripple effect on others, whether you realize it or not, your family, your community, the world. If you fail to reach your true potential, your purpose, due to a lack of discipline, then potentially the people who you would have had a positive effect on will never know that it's possible to achieve their dreams because they didn't have your example.
That's a powerful thought. So, consider for a moment what remarkable ripple effect your own consistent, disciplined effort starting today could have on just one other person in your life.
Yeah.
If your decision to finally do instead of just try inspired them to take their own first difficult step, what new possibilities could that unlock for them and then for the world through them?
Don't waste another second just thinking about it. Apply the principles you have learned today. Start small, be consistent, and expect a radical transformation in your life. You've truly got this.
Thanks for tuning in to the Book Summary Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe for more summaries, and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Want deeper insights, exclusive book notes, and reading tips? Join our free newsletter. The link's in the description. And don't forget, if you'd like to read the full book, our affiliate link is right below. It helps support the channel and keeps the summaries coming. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing.